My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and you are lucky enough to be here for the March 2015 Practice Master Virtual User Group Meeting from Attorney Computer Systems. We are happy that you are here. And so today we are going to talk about, what are we talking about, Mary Jo? History tracking. Mary Jo is going to talk about history tracking. If you don't know what that is, stay tuned. You'll find out. And I'm going to talk about locating things in lists, how to get quickly to what it is that you're looking for. A lot of ways. I hope I remember them all. But before we talk about that, let's do a little housekeeping. This thing right here is the GoToWebinar control panel. Yours may look a little cooler because I guess they've updated their look, and I have been too busy to update my picture. But it looks something like this, and if you're still looking at this, it's because you haven't pressed this button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, because had you pressed that button, this thing would have flown right off the side of your screen. That's what this button does. And when it's flown off the side of your screen, and the only thing you can see are these buttons, this button changes into a button that points to the left, because that's how you bring this thing back. Why would you want to bring this thing back? Why? Of course, because you're shy and you have a question. If you type your question here, and if you remember to hit the send button, Leanne, our humble and timely moderator, will spring into action and recognize that you have a question, interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the opportune time, and she'll ask your question for you on your behalf. Now, I have been known on at least one occasion to ramble aimlessly, or let's just say to not answer the question. Don't unmute that. Don't unmute that microphone, Mary Jo. And so sometimes I may get off track and be answering the wrong question. That's why you'll want to keep us on track by typing direction that will clarify what you're asking, and remember to hit send. Leanne will get us back on track. Or maybe something we say creates a follow-up question or more. So remember, keep typing your questions here. Keep remembering to hit send. Leanne will keep you in that conversation, and we'll make sure we get your question answered. Now, if you're not feeling shy, you could surprise us, because this only happens every 3 or 4 months. If you press this button here that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it, that means raise your hand. And so Leanne, our humble and timely moderator, will again spring into action, recognize that you have a question, interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the opportune time, but instead of asking your question for you, she will simply unmute your microphone and let you ask your own question. Keep in mind that you have, at that point, entered the no Dorito, no Frito zone. Your microphone will remain open until we're done answering your question. That means 2 things. A, no crunchy snacks, and B, you can keep us on track or ask your follow-up questions directly. You will have that open line of communication until we are done answering your question. And so now, without any further ado, I'm going to, well, not quite yet, Mary Jo, I forgot. And I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how to do this computer thing. Yeah. I'm going to remind everyone that has version 15.1 or version 15.2 that we are sunsetting, or STI is sunsetting, those versions in June of this year. So if you have 15.1 or 15.2, maybe you're on maintenance and you just haven't gotten around to updating. Maybe you're not on maintenance and you intend to update, but you have to pay for it if you're not on maintenance. I would recommend you do that before June, because that's when support will go away. It will be harder for us to get support if we need to ask questions on your behalf, and it will eventually become harder for you to migrate your data up to the current version, because eventually those routines will also go away. So now, without any further ado, here's Mary Jo to tell you what history tracking is and how you might use it.
So history tracking is one of those things that you might get a message here and there that says your history tracking is full, or you just don't have any idea what it is or how it works. So hopefully I can address all of those issues today, and you have a
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Well, I guess we'll
we have
start over
determined
again.
that the reason you're not hearing Mary Jo,
I'm sorry.
and the reason I'm not hearing Mary Jo, except that she's sitting next to me, is because she
I was
muted herself when I told her to mute herself, because she was making smart comments about
Yeah,
something.
I did.
Mary Jo, why don't you start over telling us about history and what it is and when you might want to use it?
So a lot of people don't know what history tracking is, or maybe you get a message that pops up that tells you that your history tracking is full or reached its maximum limit, and you're like, what is that? So I'm going to try to show you a couple of things today that will explain what history tracking is, how to turn it on, how to change your settings, all of those fun things that have to do with history tracking. So first off, when you come in to set up Practice Master, and this was probably done way before, way back whenever you first got Practice Master, there's a customization setting that you can change to enable the history tracking. And I'm going to open this up here. And here is the little history tracking, and you can enable history tracking. And you can also limit the history size, the file size. This here is what you get the message that pops up and says that your history tracking has reached its maximum limit or it's getting close to being, full. If that happens, you just come in here and you just up this to a higher number. This is in megabytes, so you're just upping this amount until you get however many that you want in there. Honestly, I just come in and just put in 9999 and I don't worry about it again. That's my history file size. So this is where you turn it on. So if you don't know if you have history tracking on, you can come in here and just check. You can go into customization. This will be an exclusive task. It will let you browse, though. So now that we have document management, it does let you come in and browse the customization. So if you come in and somebody else is in the system, just say OK, and it'll ask if you want to browse, say yes. You can see if this is checked and what the size is. If you find out that it is not checked and that you want to up the size, you will need to ask everyone to log out, and then you can come in and check these boxes and change that. You don't even have to limit history size now. You can turn that off. Now, if you're on a previous version, I don't know that that was the case. I'm pretty sure that that history size, it just was a box, and you had to fill in the amount. So if you don't want to limit, uncheck the box. If you do, you can put in an amount that you want to limit that file size to.
Okay, for all you young people out there, computers used to have really small hard disks, and we had to worry about how much space things were taking. Just in case you're, 25, 30 years old, and you're going, why would you want to limit the history file size? It's an old thing. It's an old people thing.
Yes.
I'm done now.
So, yeah, most of our computers have way more space than, well, what we think you might want to use. But, hey, we thought that we would never use, a couple megabytes a few years ago, so who knows. But I would uncheck this. I don't think you need to limit this right now. Enable the history tracking, and you're good to go. Say OK. Now, what is history tracking, and what is it going to show me? I'm going to go into a client here, and I am going to look at Mr. Klein, Daniel Klein here. And I'm going to go over to his, well, let's see. If I look at his history over here in my quick clicks, there's a display history. So right now, as long as I'm highlighting a record, I'm on a client record, I'm going to display the history. If there is any history, I'm going to get a record history box, and it's going to tell me what has been changed for this particular client record, because that's where I am. It's going to tell me the date and time, who changed it, and what field was changed. So apparently the comments field before was blank, and now it has the value of potatoes. I can limit this to see certain users, and I can also see certain fields. So right now, it's showing all fields. The only one that has changed is the comment field. But I can see what has been changed. I know what date the record was originally created, and I know what has happened to change it. Now, this is not going to show me if a record is deleted. If a record's deleted, it's gone. We can't display history on a deleted record because there's no record to display history on. So that's different. We're just looking on things that have been changed. You have a different list order here that you can do. You can do it in field order or date order. I only have one record here right now. But let's go over to the calendar, and let's look at this. I'm going to just click on this record here, and I'm going to look at the display history. I know I'm kind of moving around here. Now this one, I can see this particular calendar record was changed twice. It was originally created by the blank user on 10/20. I'm sorry, it was created on 11/15 with a due date of 10/20. But then down here, it was changed by Ron to have an old value of 10/20 for the due date to a new value of 10/21. And then it was again changed by Ron to change it back to the 10/20. So I can follow that history of what's happened on a certain field. Now this is really useful if somebody comes to you and says, well, I didn't change that, I didn't do that. you can click on the field and say, well, here's your user ID. So either you or someone logged in as you has made a change on this date, and this is what happened. So it's a good way to track that on what you've done and what other people have done in the system. So how do I get which fields are going to be tracked? That's the next thing. So what we're going to do is get out of everything and go up to our maintenance and to File Maintenance. And I am not going to make my backup, but you would do that. And let's go look at Client, for instance. So let's come into the Client field. It is coming up here. And I'm going to look at the Field tab. Now, every one of these fields have the option to track the history. So if I have my client ID, if I want to track that history and see if anybody ever renames that client or renumbers that client ID or changes it, I could track that history just by checking that box. The name field, same thing. That one's already on. Now, you might find as you go along that some of these are already tracking history. If they're not, you can choose to track it. We can go to the Alpha Search. A lot of these fields here are available. Now, not everything is able to be tracked, but a lot of the fields are. So if there's something in particular that you want to track, you can just come through here and you can choose which ones you want to do.
I'll point out that the reason it can't be tracked here is when she's clicking on a field that doesn't have track history as an option, it's really a field that's coming from another file. In this instance, it's the contact file. So those virtual fields is what they're called. You can't track history on them because that change isn't really happening in the client file, but you can track the history on that corresponding field in the contact
Correct.
file.
We would go to the contact file, and we would turn on this address and track the history in the field tab of the contact file. You saw I was on the client file right now, and I can see it's virtual. So that's just, like Paul said, it's mirroring another field in another database. So again, pick and choose which ones you want to track the history on, and then check the box, and you can do that. So this is one area. I was in the client screen. I'm going to get back out to, and I'm going to say, do I want to continue? I'm sorry? You could just interrupt me. Just
Leanne has
stop
sprung
me from
into
talking.
action. She's recognized that someone has had a question.
Yes, I have recognized that Carolyn actually has her hand up.
Okay.
We're going to unmute somebody?
So
Okay.
I'm going to unmute her. And Carolyn, you can ask your question.
Uh-oh.
Are you there?
Carolyn's shy.
Uh-oh.
Is she
Can we
unmuted?
scare her away?
I think maybe she got shy or isn't on the phone.
Wait.
Maybe your question is, how do I get connected
Maybe
to the
she
phone?
didn't want to be unmuted.
Nope, she's changed her mind. She said, sorry, I'm putting my hand down.
Oh, we were so close, Carolyn.
Carolyn.
We could have had a question. Oh, well, okay. Well, let's go into a different file just to see some of the other options here. So let's go into the calendar file here. And again, on the field tab, we're going to look at these, and we're going to see the different ones that we can track history. So here's the type. If we want to track that history, we turn that on. There are some, like I said, that are already checked. Some are coming from other fields. Here's a virtual, same thing. So once you've made those changes, say yes, and then that's going to push that out and make that field trackable. All of these different areas that you can go in, Paul talked about the contact, those fields being pulled from the contact file. If I go into the contact file, go to the field, and I go to that address, I can track the history. I can go to address 123. Not on this one, it's the virtual field again, but some of these that are not, I can track that history, and it will push out to those virtual fields as well. So this is a great place to turn that on and figure out what do I want to track, make sure the field is being tracked, and then use that tool to find out what changes have been made and by who. Paul?
I will also say that this gives you the wherewithal to open up things like letting everybody edit contacts. A lot of times people are, oh, I don't want to let everybody edit contacts because they might mess it up and we might not know what it was set to before. Well, that's not true if you've got history tracking on. It also lets you know when contacts are edited who made a change that may not have been right. Maybe somebody put in street instead of ST. Maybe they put in ST period when you don't put the periods. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But the point is, this can be used to help you gently educate people so that everybody's moving in the right direction.
It's a good training tool.
Exactly.
You can find out who's entering the clients properly, especially if you've got a new hire and you're trying to, get everybody to do it right. It's a gentle reminder that you can come up and say, hey,
it's not like Big Brother's watching. It's just like Big Brother cares.
Yes, they are.
Going to,
yes, they are. Big Brother's always watching.
I never check the history file, I'll tell you that.
Anyway, there you go, Paul.
So I'm talking about how to find things in the lists. Now, in version 17, we got these neat boxes up here, and a lot of people don't even see them. You know how it is. You get a new version, you get it installed, it looks the same. You don't notice there's this box up here. So I'm going to talk about a lot of different ways to find things. Now, you come into your client list, and your client list is probably a little bit bigger than mine. You'll notice that my client list doesn't even have client number on it, which I find a little odd. I wonder, it's just the view that I'm looking at. I'm going to change it over here to a different one. And there we'll go. So let's say you've got a view like this. Now, did you know that when you click on a column, it will sort by that column? And you can tell that it's sorting by that column because the little triangle appears there. If you click on that same column again, the triangle inverts, and so does your sorting. So right now we're sorting Z to A, and if we click on client name again, now we're sorting A to Z. If I then instead click on client ID, now I'm sorting by client ID. But did you know that if you then simply start to type 850, it will take you to the first record that matches what you've typed based on the field that it's sorting on. And the minute you start typing, it actually, and this is old school, this is in every version, this isn't new, it will actually pop up a box that tells you what you're searching on and allows you to see what you've typed, because sometimes you'll miss a character and you won't know why it's not finding what you're looking for. Look up here. And so I'm going to 850. I wanted 850.1, but that was enough to get me there, and now I'm at 850.01. Now, that's old school, okay? But it works really well, and it works on any field that you're searching or sorting on. So if I want to find them by address, maybe I'm looking for somebody who's at 795 North Apple. Bam, there I have it. So any field can be sorted on. Any field, therefore, can be searched on. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, I want to find the person who's on North Apple, but I don't know what their address is. Well, this isn't going to work for me then, and that's where this box comes into play. When you type in this box, it goes out and does a quick filter, and this is the only record that has North Apple in one of the fields that's displaying. So this is kind of like a quick search for anything within a field, regardless of whether the field starts with what you're typing or what you're typing appears somewhere else within the field. Very cool. But what if, and this, by the way, clears your search. So if you've got something in here, and it won't find anything with HHH in it, I hope, this will then clear your search. Now, what's this then? Well, this is a drop-down. And this drop-down can help you to narrow specifically what you're looking for in what field.
Hey, Paul, look what's there, too.
What?
There's a history box.
There is. I'm going to talk about that.
I know.
But that's not the history that you're thinking about. It's search history. She's just needling me. Okay. So now, let's say I wanted to search specifically for North Apple within the address. What do? It's not in there. Well, you can choose from all the fields that appear in whatever column layout you have selected, and I happen to have selected one that shows all the fields, which boxes you want to show up here simply by dropping down this list and either checking or unchecking that box. So now I've added address line 1 and address line 2 as something that I can very quickly zero in on, and if I go here and type North Apple, not only am I going to find the same record, but I'm going to find it based on the fact that that appears strictly in the address line 1, not in the work description, not in the client name, not anywhere else. Okay? So very, very neat way to zero in on things. It can be a little slower than you're seeing here if you've got a lot more records than I do, and if you don't have Platinum, because this is a filter. So keep in mind, if it's something that's slow, Platinum would make that go faster, or just change the way you're searching for things. History is going to show me, not the history like Mary Jo was talking about, but the history of what I have searched for. So I originally searched for North Apple without any regard for what field. I then searched for HHH without any regard for what field. And then I looked for North Apple specifically in address 1. And that's what this history does. So if I go back to HHH, it's going to not find anything, but that's how I get back to that historical search. Now, there are more ways, and I'm going to clear this out. For instance, I can press Control F. And I think over here, there's also, I need to get over here, Control F, and I'll go into Find. Now, that's also Find and Replace, but you don't have to replace. You can just find or you can replace. So if I searched here for North Apple, what I get instead of what I got before was a list down here showing me where the occurrence is, and then I can double-click, and that'll take me to that particular record. So those are some neat ways to be able to search for certain things and be able to go straight to those records without having to know the client number or without having to know the client name search. You can really search on just about anything. You also, and not a lot of people know this, this was added recently too, you now have, and maybe it's hiding because it's collapsed, you now have this ability to look at all or active only. So when I go to all, I don't think I got too many more, if any. Active only takes it only to the cases that aren't marked inactive. And that's what's showing up right here. If you mark a case inactive, then it will drop it off this active only filter. The neat thing about this is that this can be used with the other filters that down here or the filters that you do up here, and it can still limit whatever you're looking for to being all clients or active only. Now, one last thing I want to show you. If you have, and I don't know if this is going to happen for me simply because it's not that big a data set. Now, it didn't do it, but if you click on a field to sort by it, and you get a little box that pops up, and I think it's actually happening here, we're just not seeing it. If you get a little box that pops up and says, please wait, building temporary index, well, if you have, thousands and thousands of matters, inactive and active, that may take a little while to build that temporary index. If you go into file maintenance and build an index on that field that you're searching for, then it will always maintain that index and it won't have to build it on the fly. So I'm not saying to go in and build an index for every field. That would be something that would make saving a record take a long time because it's trying to index every single field when it does that. But what I am saying is that if you're constantly searching on phone 1 and sorting on phone 1, and then you're having to wait while it says, please wait, building temporary index, going in and building that index ahead of time and letting it maintain it will make that clicking on that column to sort by that field instantaneous. Okay? So that's all I have to say about finding records, except that it works everywhere. So if I go to calendar, and let's say I had a whole bunch of calendar entries for this particular list, this particular matter, I can go in here or in here and search by certain things, like maybe I want to see just the trial and I'm using a calendar code for that, or maybe I'm looking for a specific due date, or maybe there's another field that I want to narrow it down by. Or if I go into notes or email or phone or document or fee, any of these tabs that have these lists, I can do the same thing as far as searching over here. And I'm not searching for a client anymore because I can only search for a client when I'm on the client list. When I'm on a different list, I'm searching for those records.
Paul, a question I get all the time is this available on Matter Manager?
Well, let's go over to Matter Manager. Are you trying to stump me, Mary Jo? Yes, it is. And again, it's based on the fields that are showing and your ability to add them. So yes, it is available on Matter Manager. I'm glad
sorry, Paul, I thought you knew that it was. I was trying to just have you go over there smoothly, Bomb. Sorry about that, Paul.
I suppose I could have, played it a little more coy and pretended like I knew exactly what I was talking about. But hey, I would never do that, right, Mary Jo? Okay. So that's how to search within a list. And of course, this is a list. It's called the Matter Manager. Now, before we get into reminding you about version 15.1 and 2 again, next month we will be talking about the file definition report. Mary Jo will show you what that is. It's a way to know what fields are being stored in what files, and a lot of useful information in it. Mary Jo will show you where to get it, show you how to use it, and show you what information is in there. And I'm going to talk about fatal errors. We've all gotten them. What do we do with them? How do we get back to them? Do we need to write down everything that's in that screen? These and more questions will be answered. So that said, remember, if you're on version 15.1 or 15.2, please think about getting updated before June when they go into an off-maintenance state that we call sunsetting. How do I tell what version I'm on? Well, you come into Help in any program, Tabs, Practice Master, wherever you are, choose About that program, About Practice Master in this instance, and right up at the top it says what version you're on. So if you don't know what version you're on and you're wondering whether you're on version 15.1 or 15.2, come in here, find out, and if you are, consider updating. And last but not least, we go over here and type in attorneycomputersystems.com. Notice how I point to the S when I hit systems.com. You will be taken to our website where you will be able to see every video that we have ever recorded. So if I go into Practice Master Virtual User Group Meetings, we will find that we're not getting there. Let's try that again. These darn computers. There we go. So we've got next month's sign up all ready to go, and we see as we scroll down previously recorded versions. This one's currently in post-production. No, it's not. We're not even done with it yet. But in 2 minutes when we hang up the phone, it'll be in post-production, and it will show up eventually here. And as we scroll down even farther, recorded versions of every virtual user group meeting we've ever done, whether it be Tabs or Practice Master or World Docs. We have our Coffee Pot webinars that I put on every month on Fridays, a Friday. Mary Jo's eBytes video series, which are little snippets, little short 2, 3, 4-minute videos with some very succinct information in them. And then the longer format Paul and Mary Jo show, where we take up a broader topic and spend anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes dissecting it. So all this video content is available to you. Take advantage of it. Be sure to use the new search feature to search for exactly what you're looking for and zero in on those records. So everybody have a good rest of the day, rest of the month. We will see you in April at our Practice Master Virtual User Group meeting. Thanks much. Bye-bye.